I'm Kevin Crawford from Kevin Crawford Consulting, and welcome to the Executive Mirror. Hello, my name is Kevin Crawford from Kevin Crawford Consulting, and I'm again here with my dear friend.
I'm Dr. Relly Nadler, True North Leadership, and I'm excited to continue talking about some of these crucibles that leaders go through. So today we want to talk about, I deal with all the time, and I'm sure you do, overwhelm. People are so busy, it's hard to even get someone on the phone often. So what, like the executives you deal with, how do you see the overwhelm, or how do they present that? Like, what are some of the concerns?
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. The world is so busy. There's so much coming at executives, this day and age. And we could have a whole conversation around how you manage the amount of information that comes to you, But the overwhelming piece is interesting. I think if you were able to get real candid conversations with all the executives, you would see that they all feel overwhelmed to some degree. Now, personally, I didn't experience it maybe as much as a lot of people, just because of my upbringing in the fire service. That's kind of a crisis. That's life and death. And so these things that I was dealing with, it didn't fall into that. So I guess that tells us a little bit about context. And I'd love to hear your perspective about context.
And I think you hit on the word perspective. So you have a way different perspective because you've been in life and death situations and where you got to make quick decisions. For the people that I deal with, even though I dealt with a fair amount of folks in emergency room, first responders, I've dealt with military first responders, it feels like a crisis, whether it's a real crisis or not, whether it's life and death. And so the cortisol gets released in the body, and all of a sudden they're not thinking as clear as they can because their brain is full of cortisol and they feel like they got to make a decision, and they're operating with less IQ points. And so I'll use that, as a psychologist, I've given IQ tests. Nobody wants to hear they're operating with less IQ points. So that's why talking with someone like you and I, okay, let's kind of get thoughts on the table to see what we should do here.
I love the idea of getting the thoughts on the table. And that seems to be a good way to bring clarity. When it's all bundled together, it feels pretty massive and pretty heavy. But when we separate it out, and we can come up with easy solutions for this. Maybe this isn't today's problem. It's going to be tomorrow's problem. And this is what we really need to deal with. And we develop a strategy to deal with that. Then the overall anxiety seems to reside a little bit. But when it's all collected in that one bucket, it feels pretty heavy.
It's kind of like a mess that's going on in their brain. Everything's tied together. And so in a way, kind of like physicians who see someone on an examination table, we get their ideas on the table. And then I think when it's separated, they could actually hear their own self think, I don't know why I'm thinking that. That's not so important now. But this one is. And I think they get that sense of agency that now maybe I can do something about some of this, which is going to let it feel less overwhelmed.
Agency is self-empowering, I suspect. Right. Is that true?
Yeah. I think, it's a word it's one of the buzzwords, but I think agency means I'm empowered. I have autonomy, another kind of big word. I can make a decision about this.
One of the other things that I've noticed is that it really doesn't matter what's going on out here. It matters what's going on here. Because this is variable.
Right.
And the significance of this, or the impact of all of this for one person, is different than it is for another person. So how do we get executives to have the world out there impact them less?
Yeah. Well, I think some of it is to realize if it's only in their head, it's fearful, it's dark, it's negative, it's somewhat exaggerated. And I think when we can parse it out, so I use this analogy typically like when you go to a buffet table and all the food's out there, you get hungry thinking about that. You don't pick up everyone, you kind of peruse. And then that's what we help executives do. Let's talk about this idea first. Is that what's important to you? I think they feel that sense of agency and I'm making progress. And then I can also look at some of these things aren't the same priority.
So that would be the strategy in times when you feel overwhelmed.
Right.
Or borderline overwhelmed. We have this tunnel vision, or we have this reactive, knee-jerk response to certain things. And oftentimes that response is ill-advised.
Yeah.
But it's just the first thing that they kind of think about, and they want to take action on it.
Yep.
And they want to demonstrate some action, as we talked about last time.
Right.
And we need to get them to slow down their thinking.
Yes.
How is that done?
Well, I think it's in these strategic, powerful questions, and you use a term I like to use. Leadership is slow thinking. Unless you're at the front line of a fire or you're in the military, you got time to slow down. And research is saying we only go to slow thinking about 2% of the time. Fast thinking, and I tell executives, do you think you need more training in fast thinking? Yes, if you're a first responder, but otherwise, we got time, and it's really the questions, the reflection, and hearing their own thoughts. And often when they hear their own thoughts, they have an aha, and it changes the brain chemistry, the neural pathways. Like, they can have a transformational thought in the moment where all you and I did is provoke it by the right questions.
One of the things that I've noticed with people that worked for me is if I just got them in a conversation around it and they described the problem and the potential solutions, that just codifying it in their mind to communicate it kind of solved the problem.
Right.
And I was off the hook. For more information, contact Kevin, CrawfordConsulting.com.